Almost. About 59. I need a motion to accept the minutes of May 1st.
Move.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded. Minutes are accepted. Oh, I'm thinking of it. Matt, still, BJ, thinking that what you did, what you presented at the last meeting should really be shared with a lot more people.
Oh, we did. We did it at a work session.
Really? I missed it, huh?
He did at a work session.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Well, there's an agenda available online.
Maybe I'm getting off topic, but how did it go?
I was pilloried, actually.
Yeah, pillar.
Standing room only, really. That's what it is.
How those coming along?
Good, great,
It was good.
fantastic. Next meeting date, 7:10, 6 p.m. Al, that's where Al is, it's midnight.
Did he tune in?
It was
Just got there.
a 24-hour travel day for him, and I said, don't, we can do it without you for one. Anyhow, does 5 p.m. work for you guys? It would help him out. Doesn't bother anybody at this end.
5?
5?
Was it July 10? Is that what you said?
Yeah. And I guess we could do that for August too.
Sure, let me just have a quick look at a calendar.
Okay. Oh, being too early.
Yeah, July is fine, August as well.
The August date is what?
It is 7th.
Second, forgotten.
Other correspondence.
Leave it between us so you can use it right.
Any people write me specifically? Did you write the WMAC with any correspondence that I'm missing? Did you write to us?
I know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I'm at that point in the agenda.
Just in the email.
Okay,
Yeah, just the email.
okay. And so we're down to briefing by town liaison. Jim's not here. Amber's taking over.
BJ. I thought I was in the liaison, but you can do it.
No, I can't. I'm just observing.
No, I don't have anything.
How we doing? Al Loretto here.
Yeah.
Oh, man, he's still standing.
Still standing. Still standing.
Welcome.
Thank
Great.
you.
Okay, terrific. Briefing by Bay Constable,
Only thing I got for you guys,
Harbor Master, sorry.
whatever. This guy. We did the first water sampling today as part of the Blue Water Task Force, Surfrider Foundation, Iconic Baykeeper conglomeration. So I took samples from West Neck Harbor Anchorage and Cockles Harbor Anchorage, and we brought them over. We met with some volunteers who were doing some sampling in Sag Harbor, and got them off to the lab, no problems. So they say we should have results, sometime late tomorrow afternoon. For all intents and purposes, let's say Wednesday. They'll be posted automatically to their website. I will provide you all with a link to that once I know where it is, but they're gonna send me a link to it and then I'll share it with you, so you don't have to go through like a click here, click here, click here. And then we'll be able to see it. It'll be updated every week. The only thing that they really kind of wanted me to drive home was this is a new process. So we have to kind of set a baseline of information, right? So whatever we get tomorrow or Wednesday, that's bit of information one. It doesn't mean anything yet, right? So we have to build sort of a baseline of data, but we're working on it. So hopefully it'll complement all of the information that you've been gathering, Matt, and we'll go from there.
Now, do you just sample one?
Yep.
At any specific level, or just right?
No, it's pretty, it's pretty flexible, right? So they really just want to get a water sample from the general area that we're looking
Just
to
off
get
the
it from.
surface.
Yeah, wade out, if you're doing it from the shore, wade out like knee deep and they give you a little pole and reach in. We're using Whirl packs. I don't know if you've used them before with other, kind of a sample, standard thing. Takes 10 milliliters of water and you whirl it around and twist it up and mark it and send it off. So I did, Billy, at your request, sort of try to pigeonhole them a little bit on source tracking, if we get to that point. They've had other people ask, and they haven't got reliable responses from the labs that they've queried. So they're still working on it. They're actually working on trying to get a relationship set up with Stony Brook to try and,
For the cost of the additional test, the electrophoresis or the PCR test?
yeah, it's for PCR testing, right? But the labs that are willing to do it, they haven't liked the responses that they've got from them from like just kind of the background data and how they're doing things. So we're working on it. They don't have an actual answer yet, but they know that we're interested and that we're willing to pay for it if we need to. So
Well, I guess that's,
provided we get to that point, right?
and if we approve what it costs to get it done. Did they say anything about nitrogen testing? We were going to check that out.
I didn't ask them about nitrogen testing. I can ask. That's no problem.
Yeah, just if they can include that in the assay that they do.
Yeah, that would be next level, right? So what they're doing right now is slightly more than presence absence of Enterococcus, right?
Yeah.
And so that's all that this lab can do. That's all that Baykeeper can do. So if we were to move into some, second level testing of a given sample, then I could ask for that too.
Okay.
The website's really interesting. They have them, go right to it. It's called Blue Water Task Force.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a Google map with pins on it. You can click right on, you can zoom in and say, Harbor Safe, for instance, and there's two green pins and one red pin. The red pin, interestingly enough, is Northwest Creek. There's a lot of red pins along the south shore, like in Wayne Scott and East Hampton, Georgia Pond area kind of places. And then there's also places where you can pull up the data and history of it. And it's really interesting because some of the highest levels of bacteria are in the middle of the winter, So again, more question marks, where's this stuff coming from? And
They qualify a lot of the data that they put up as well. Like one of the things that I like that they do is they display how frequently out of the total sample size, this area is above, below, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
So it may be today, or the most recent sample, it was very high, concerning high, but that's less than 4% of the time that it's been sampled, right? So it kind of qualifies everything. So the website is pretty good.
It's a big work. They have a $19 million pot they're working with. So it's sort of on the lines of the Peconic Land Trust, but in the water. I don't know what they do with all this money.
One of the things that sort of I talked a bit about at the town board that was slightly different than what I talked about here, or that was same issue, but the conclusion was that the rainfall was more significant than when I went back and looked at the data that I presented here, went back with more sort of, got better data, which was still ironically tough to find on when rain's actually coming down. And so it showed that more of the sites, or more of the elevated readings that we're seeing seemed to be coinciding. I don't want to say caused by, but they're coinciding with rainfall events. More than the ones that I presented here. Ones that I thought were not. I looked closer at the data and looked at more local sites. It seemed that more was related to rainfall, but again, not all. And so to your point about what's happening in the winter, it's possible it was like right after a significant rainfall event.
Yeah.
And that might have led to that. And so one of the things that might be helpful with this data collection process would be to try to get some information about what's happening rain-wise in the sort of, windows right beforehand. That might, and again, sort of the timing of the sample and recording that as well is actually helpful for getting that sort of window in advance.
It's interesting to me how these things go in cycles. So probably close to 25 years ago, the same concern was part of the town. And Jeff Symes decided that he was going to do the sampling. I think he was the supervisor, right? And he went out in Cockles Harbor and right after a rainstorm and collected a sample, and sure enough, it came back with elevated bacteria levels. Then he went out the next day and it was right down to almost nothing. So, so in his mind, this was a limited problem that cleared itself up pretty quickly all on its own. I just thought that was interesting. Do you remember that? Anybody just remember that? Maybe I just made it up.
Remember Jeff Sykes?
A lot more than 25 years ago.
Really? Yeah. No, that's a true story.
That's refreshing.
Briefing by the chairman.
That website, is there gonna be some sort of link at the town's website to show the public that, this is the test results for this week or whatever? Is there some sort of connection in the future there,
We can
or?
probably figure something out. Let's see kind of how it
Yeah,
unfolds and
just
then,
think it down the road, once it all starts to work out.
Yeah.
That's.
yeah, just a link to it.
Yeah,
The Surfrider Foundation and Blue Water Task Force and Conic Baykeeper collectively just kind of put the information up. They don't push it very far. They push it a bit through their social media channels, which I don't know anything about. But we have our own social media channel, so I'm thinking that if there was something that was of concern or of interest, then maybe we could bridge the gap there. But let's see kind of how it comes up and then we'll go from there. I'll work with Christina, that's you, right? On connecting those dots? Yeah.
Oh, you inspected Carol's. Oh, I guess we can talk about when we get to Carol's application.
Sure.
Right. Anything else?
So,
Chairman briefing. I don't know where this is going to come into play, but I thought it was interesting. I went back, particularly in light of the Banana Creek situation and the group that's concerned. I went back to the original resolution for the formation of the WMAC. And it says the town board establishes a Waterways Management Advisory Council to complete a comprehensive study of the town waterways and current regulations and make recommendations to the town board on the near-term and long-term management of our waterways to ensure that current and future generations can have the same water quality as our present generation. So it's a pretty brief description of our charge. And we're rarely concerned. We're mostly looking at moorings and docks and navigation and sharing of the waterways. We haven't really been focused on water quality, right? To some extent, but primarily we're doing, and I think I don't think that's an important job we're doing. It's not what the original people were thinking back in 1992. I don't know what they were thinking. Can't speak for them. That's the end of my briefing. That brings us on to dissent. Okay. This thing got trashed in a storm over the winter. And they're looking to come up plus or minus 6 inches higher. Replacing a concrete seawall with a vinyl bulkhead. Bringing a little bit of fill. The 43 feet timber bulkhead located seaward of the existing, it must be an old.
Yes.
Oh, God, so there's an old timber bulkhead ahead of the.
In front of that.
And that's supposed to come out too, then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ugly.
We get it on the map, because I was I'm not sure exactly from,
It's on the way to just before you get to the south there, sort of looking at Smith Cove.
Oh, all right.
south of Clark.
I have to admit that the more I looked at it, the more actually concerned I got. Just where it seems like it broke through, it actually seems like a low point where you can see the trees. They're sort of right, I guess, to the north of the house. And what I'm wondering is this pond actually salt? And was this actually, is the sea trying to reestablish that sort of connection between the two areas?
Oh, is the house, that's the pond there?
There's a pond.
And this is I just was doing it right before coming up to the meeting. If you look at the elevation models, this is all sort of low, kind of comes in. I would actually suspect that this might have been originally built. This is a high point right here underneath sort of the pad of the house, and here it's all low, and that's right where it really broke through. To me, I was like, these were just things that were sort of jumping out at me as I was looking at where it broke through, and then at the overhead image that they showed the pond.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Oh, I don't know.
I would guess that, I'm not a coastal geologist, but it has something to do with the, what do they call it, the sand when it moves with currents and waves? Near shore drift, near shore drift.
Avulsion or accretion. Avulsion's taking it out, accretion's dropping it in.
And since that's
Right.
some kind of a convex or concave shoreline, something unique is happening, where he is.
Yeah, I was just, if you look at,
Yeah,
it sort of all comes in like this, and so like if you look at the contour map, actually, it cuts in here quite deeply and sort of captures this pond. So this is the flood. They actually marked that on the survey, but that's sort of the flood ponds. That's here.
so the guy to the north has a bulkhead, looks like.
Yeah, you got it, yeah.
What about to the south? I don't think so.
Doesn't seem to be on the picture.
Natural beach built up.
Hey, John, I'm here. Is there anything that I can help with this conversation? Rob from N Consultants.
Oh, hi, Rob. Rob. Like Peter Buick.
I didn't mean to jump in. I just didn't know if you realized I was here.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're the engineer on this?
Well, not the engineer. We're the consultant and agent for Mr. DeSanctis. Just in a little way of background, this was pretty old concrete seawall. And several months ago over the winter, the section that's down, are you okay if I share my screen? Because I can show you a couple of photos site level that might help.
Yes. Sure. We've got some photos, but sure. Probably came from you. I don't know.
So can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, we've got that.
It's attached to the application, yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Yep. So I had gotten a call both from one of the town board members, I think it was BJ, and also from the town attorney several months ago, who were very concerned about getting this site, getting the wall reconstructed, because shortly after the collapse, there was quite a bit of backfill material in the yard that came out into the waterway. And so, of course, we had to go through the process of obtaining permits from, outside the town, which we did first and then submitted copies. So hopefully yours is the town should be the last approval that we need. In response to the question that was just asked before I jumped in terms of the timber bulkhead that's being permanently removed, it's this bulkhead that's built in this corner. This wall probably was the original wall ages and ages and ages ago, and the concrete seawall had been constructed inside of it. So once this wall is replaced with a vinyl bulkhead, this wall out here, which will be removed as part of the construction, is just going to be permanently removed. So just as a point of clarification, it's not this outside line that's being replaced. It's the concrete seawall. And so you can see from the prior photo, where did it go? Yeah, so there's no bulkhead on that side, but there is a bulkhead that's a little bit higher. It's about 6 inches higher on this side. And that's why we had also obtained, we arranged to have a letter obtained by the neighbor, because technically there's about a foot of the DeSanctis wall, I think a little less than a foot, that actually lies, across the property line. So to reconnect, to reestablish a connection to this existing seawall on the next property to the north, there's a little work that technically will occur over the property line. So we contacted Mr. DeSanctis, through his attorney, contacted the neighboring property owner early on to make sure that was covered. And the DEC issued a permit, which you should have in your file. And their one primary condition was, just as this seawall line is reestablished, that any of this concrete debris and rubble from the existing, or in this case, previously existing wall, is removed, so that this material is not left, on the shoreline. So that's the pond. I heard a question that's, kind of reminiscent when you're talking about one of these sort of estuarine or formally connected ponds. I don't, from looking at the site and talking to Mr. DeSanctis, that this is not, one of these areas you'd see like on the south shore of the Atlantic Ocean, where, the ocean's trying to reconnect to the estuary or something. There is a freshwater pond on the landward side of the property that happens to be behind this, part of this lower area, which I don't know if Mr. DeSanctis if he's there or if he's on Zoom, but he gave me a little bit of history of it. It's actually, it gets fed a lot by rainwater and some street runoff. There's been some damming up there, but really totally unrelated, to this project, which is really just pretty straightforward replacement of this wall. But certainly, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to try to address them.
Yeah, just real quick, Nancy, just for my own curiosity. So the concrete that's behind the timber wall looks fairly recent. That's coming out as well?
Yeah, so in other words, all of the material that is on site now, this is probably the area that you're talking about, has been sort of paved over, for lack of a better term. All this will come out. So this entire timber wall comes out permanently, and this concrete wall here comes out and is replaced in the same location with the proposed vinyl bulkhead, which will then, run the length of the property.
Okay, great.
In the same location as the previously existing wall.
Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome.
Any more discussion here? You have to take a position? I'm good. James?
I'm good.
Matt?
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm opposed.
Okay. Mark?
Do you want to share your reasons, so maybe?
Sure,
convince
yeah,
others?
I would like to know more, actually.
On the spot.
I would like to know more about it. I do sort of wonder whether that, I appreciate the comment from the consultants, that it is reconnecting, and that bulkhead maybe doesn't want to be there. And that it's sort of been put through a natural connection that was there and is maybe reestablishing with the storms, such as, that sort of, breached it just recently. if it was, in fact, I guess, and you've actually, stated it so that it's fresh water as opposed to being brackish, that would actually make me feel a bit better about it. That this is a separate sort of thing that's happening, as opposed to it being salt back there.
That's what they say is fresh water.
They say it's fresh, so.
Yeah, it
I would like to know more.
it has no tidal connection. And I mean,
I think that's clear.
just to talk out the extension of what you're saying is, I mean, the idea would be what then is the alternative? You wouldn't replace the wall and the entire property and the owner's house would be washed out, which is exactly what, as I mentioned, the town attorney and the town board were contacting us to sort of rush us to protect against. This has been decades and decades of this wall being here, and if it had been replaced sooner, this wouldn't have happened. These concrete walls do last a long time, and unlike timber walls, they usually don't look too much like they're going to fall down before they fall down, and then they suddenly fall down. But this property and the one to the north have been historically well fortified with this wall, and any other alternative, the no action alternative would substantially threaten the integrity of both properties and both homes, not just the applicants, but the neighbors to the north, which I don't think that's going to end up being to anyone's benefit.
Just to sort of carry that forward, is there an option to actually bulkhead around and back towards that pond as opposed to being all the way across?
I don't think so. I understand sort of the concept that you're talking about, but this is not an estuarine pond that is historically connected to the bay. It's a separate water body. So you would be entirely changing the nature of that wetland by trying to connect the bay to. It's kind of a non-starter conceptually.
I think, well, I don't know. You're asserting that that's the case, and I'm actually not certain of that. I'm not sure that I would agree. So.
Okay.
If it were not bulkheaded, I probably would vote against it, but since it had been historically bulkheaded and they have the house there, in order to maintain the integrity of the property and the house, I'll vote in favor of it.
Yeah.
There's also a threat to the septic, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, this washout is probably the worst I can remember you've ever seen. All right, so you're good, Matt's not good.
I agree with what Mark had to say. Obviously, there was one there before, and it's gonna take the house if you don't fix it. My only concern is, I guess, is that it just remain, it doesn't go any further. It stays right where he said, replace the concrete wall. And yeah, it's necessary there, and it was there already, so my vote's yes.
Bill?
I just had a question for Rob. On the ramp that's there, it says remove and replace 4 feet by 10 by a 4 foot by 10 foot section of the 10 foot by 20 foot wood ramp.
Yes.
Does the rest of the ramp stay in place, or what happens to that ramp that's there?
So let me just come back to that photo real quick. So you see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so there is an old ramp here that's in this part of the picture. So the section that is being proposed to be replaced, at least in connection with this application, is strictly for access for the contractor to get this bulkheading out and then do bulkheading in. To start extending this into a boat ramp replacement project would then have changed the entire nature of our application, which really, at the prompting both of the homeowner and from the town, has for several months been really an emergency application in its nature. So we very specifically limited the scope of the application to the bulkhead replacement and the replacement of this section of ramp only as it would be necessary in connection with the bulkhead replacement. So whether Mr. DeSantis would come back and look to replace the rest of the ramp or something in the future, I don't know at this point, but we were very purposefully not wanting to extend the scope of this application, particularly with the DEC and other agencies, in any way that risked creating additional review times, anything that would delay the DeSantis's ability to get a contractor in there and get that breach. Shored
Is it
up.
functional now, that ramp? It is actually run down to the, from this photo, you can't.
I mean, it's not in great shape, but yeah, I mean, you can still slide something down it. And again, that's why we kind of discussed it at the time. Well, would this be a good time, to sort of replace the decking of the ramp as well? But again, we made a conscious decision to avoid extending the conversation into the ramp.
Well, I can understand removing it to get the job done. I'm just wondering about the replacement of that portion of it, if it makes any sense, why you're going to replace.
Well, because otherwise you would leave it. You would leave it in a non-functional condition because you'd end up with a 3 or 4 foot gap between the ramp and the wall. So they would have to basically replace that decking just to keep it intact. But again, this is sort of illustrating my point that if an application was made to, replace the entire ramp, these are questions that, whether the ramp should be replaced, et cetera, are questions that would be better addressed in the context of an application to, replace and restore the entire ramp.
I know, but then the argument becomes that we've already replaced part of the ramp, so why not replace the whole ramp? Has anyone expected this site?
Only from just from knowing where it is. I didn't go down there again. So, Rob, are you saying that they're replacing the part of the ramp just because they need to do it for access to deposit the old, get rid of the old bulkhead? I mean, it seems to me like it's just the connection that's going to be broken and that has to be reestablished.
That's correct. So this area, I don't know if you can see me circling it with my cursor. There would be no way to get this old timber bulkhead out, get this concrete out, put this vinyl in without removing this section. So we don't want to leave a hole here as a result. And I don't really think there's any, I don't think that the town is providing any indication that the entire ramp could be permitted for removal simply by, maintaining this one section. I suspect many would just ignore it, but, I try to provide every detail, in these proposals. And just from talking to the contractor, realistically, this section has to be removed. There's an old groin here too, on the other side of it. And that you can see on the plan, there's a little bit of that section is going to be removed, but the groin's in a pretty dilapidated condition there, and the owners have no inclination to replace that section. So that 4 foot section by the groin would just be removed with no replacement. So
We need
really
stairs. We need stairs.
I was just gonna say, this is more of an afterthought, but I don't see any access over or under.
Looks like there's a ladder on
Anything
the other
there.
side, but not on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pre-existing structure, so then they're not really replacing that, it's more they're asking for the bulkhead, but that does come up, John. I was just looking at that, there's no way around it. Was this photo taken at low tide or high tide?
I could only pretend to remember the answer to that. I mean, it was probably not high because you could see the water.
It appears to be a low tide there, yeah.
I mean, the surveyor did show mean high water, coming just seaward of the ramp and then coming up here. So, I mean, it
Really?
may not be that far off high water, at least based on
Really?
the survey.
Doesn't
But
seem
I
like
don't.
Can you just step up onto it? How high is it?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, the access, you can just step onto the ramp and you walk up and around. I mean, right now, it's a, crap show back there with, the lost fill and everything, but, once the new wall.
I didn't see the height there. I wasn't, see that part of the blueprint.
Yeah, it's not,
I mean, it's not really an accessible shoreline that people are walking, but at the same time, the town does require that access is.
we're not really talking about the dock, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying. This is kind of off subject, kind of.
All right.
yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I mean, in the ultimate public trust doctrine scenario where, somebody was walking along the shoreline or was washed ashore in a boat in an impending hurricane, the ramp is low enough that you can step onto it and walk up onto dry land.
And that would really only be an issue if that ramp were to be rebuilt, then that would come up. Right now, that's, like you said, it's not.
Actually, the way I read it, Tom, is that the owner has a responsibility for that to be in place regardless of whether it's new construction or not. It's supposed to be there.
Oh,
The way I read it.
Oh, okay.
You should study it. All right, so where are we here?
I'm still okay with it, yeah. I'm still okay with, my original vote there, yes.
Yeah, I'm good. I would just wonder about whether they come back for the ramp or not, but no, I'm fine.
All right, so that's 5-1. Okay. Next is Roy.
John, I'm sorry, before I sign off, I didn't hear the vote.
Five in favor, 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Rob.
You bet.
Royer dredging application. This, I don't have any first-hand knowledge of this, but it looks like it's on private property. Basin,
Yeah,
and looks like it's been dredged before.
Yeah.
I believe it's dredged almost yearly, I believe. Every other year.
I don't think I haven't seen it dredged in years. I'm amazed how filled in it.
Is this after the fact? Because they were dredging it.
I was just gonna say, last week, they were dredging it. Yeah,
It's already done.
it's already done.
Yeah.
This project is complete, I believe. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm surprised because I saw it, I hadn't heard you guys talking about it.
I went by there last week to
He
drop,
had that long stick out there a couple of days and
and, I went around last weekend, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And he was.
last Wednesday or Thursday, I saw him.
But they do
No
that
problem.
fairly, that's fairly regular, because when I go by there in the summertime, you see it, you see the sand usually pushed down to the north, up against the bulkheads. That's usually where they deposit the soil.
Idea of who might have done the dredging?
Right.
Not sure.
It has been done. Can I jump in for a second? I've also observed that has been dredged fairly, pretty regularly, almost on a yearly basis, if not every 3 years or so. And the sand does seem to go back onto the guy's own property.
Contractors marked on the application.
Oh, thank you. That's right.
Chesterfield.
Well, the question was raised to me, why does he need a permit at all? Because it's on private property. I didn't have a good answer.
My only concern was that it's been done and here's the permit application. That's kind of my concern. I mean, it was obviously gonna be okay because it's always okay, but.
Is he operating under a maintenance permit already?
Says
It
maintenance
was an expired permit.
Expired.
Refer to DC.
Interesting.
Sometimes, trying to schedule these guys to come in with a long reach excavator isn't an easy thing. Oh. It's,
So it justifies doing it without the permit?
Yeah.
well, you know, I mean, if the guy's been getting,
James Ekman's
you know,
life
the
a lot
permit's
easier
been
as a
renewed.
contractor all these years.
The permit's been renewed for at least the last 20 years.
This has been extended to 2028, it says from the DEC.
Just inform the town attorney and see if there's anything.
You know, they used to do 10
Okay.
years, now they do 5 years, and you can renew it with a letter, but then after 10 years, you have to start all over again. It's the whole permitting process is a nightmare.
A little bit.
Well,
It is
we
usually,
take a
it
vote.
is usually clear.
Yeah, I'm good, James.
I'm okay with it, other than the fact that it's done.
Doesn't appear as though there was any attempt to enlarge on it. Just maintain what's there.
No, it's bulkheaded on both sides
Yeah,
going
I could
in.
echo James, I was like, you know, it's done every year, I see it, it's fine, except for the fact that, yeah, probably should have gotten the permit first.
Mark? Yes.
Tom? Same thing, it shouldn't have been done without a permit, but it's done, so okay, you know, it's, you know, one of them things. Get the permit first, then.
I think it should put all the sand back.
You get the permit, then take all the sand out.
He dread it.
Don't worry, the sand will be back shortly.
Right, we'll wait till fall. Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so it's 6:00. Would have been nice if we had seen the permit earlier, but doesn't seem to be any harm done. Carol, we go again.
Got a letter.
Yeah, a lot of words.
Unless you want to save this and do Mananic. You guys, okay?
I'm learning.
Watch out, you might get appointed. So, there's a platform that's freestanding out in Cockles Harbor. You guys stop me if I'm not describing this accurately.
It was never connected.
It was never connected.
So there was never a CO issued for this dock then? Is that what I'm to understand, because it was never completed, or?
No, it was never, I think that's what it was supposed to be.
That's what it was designed.
It was a pulley line to that platform, and he kept his boat there.
I don't remember seeing a dock permit for this.
Yeah, there was a permit and it was never built. After the original one was built, you know, what's existing there now, it says someplace that there was
I thought.
a permit back in 2005, but it was never built.
Yeah, it was 2005 for a dock.
But Ivers.
I remember Ivers in 2000.
But as long as I can recall, there's never been anything connecting the platform to shore.
I don't remember that. I agree with you.
Yeah, and that right there creates a red flag as to now you have to conform to what we're allowed to do now versus, because it's not really a pre-existing thing because it doesn't exist. Right. So.
So we're back to 4 feet of depth and 100 feet maximum length.
And the setbacks.
And the setback is 20 feet, not 25 feet.
Yeah, to justify, you know, the thing is not in the best shape as it stands. 20 feet.
Has anyone taken a good look at the condition? Is it, you know, beyond the replace percentage?
I've been meeting, you
I
know,
went out there the other day, I said, John, so I'm definitely not an inspection engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but.
The qualifier.
So all the deck planking needs to be replaced, several of the boards are missing. The exposed framing appears to be generally usable. I can't speak to anything below the water line, what the pilings might look like, you know, at the silt line. I would guess they're probably in fairly bad shape, but all of the visible framework seems usable, there's a lot worse out there.
You happen to know whether it looked treated wood or just old?
It's just all old and gray. I would imagine that it's all treated timber, to be honest with you.
I just see something, I think that what's gonna happen is they're gonna start working on it, and it's gonna be one of those situations where it was, oh, it was too far gone, so we just throw it out and we rebuilt it.
There's no,
Yeah.
you're not gonna build a brand new dock.
Connected to
And
that.
leave it, yeah, so,
And don't make fun of things that are old and gray.
I'm not making fun of it, I'm just saying I can't tell what it is.
It's confirming it needs to be replaced. Hey, I don't like that either. Watch out.
But, you know, they make a point in their letter about the stairs and how wonderful they meld into the ground and all that stuff. I think you could do the same thing that you were talking about with the old Bennett property, and just angle over if you really want to keep the stairs there and center the
Yeah.
dock and, you know, get it so the setbacks are right and
Exactly.
the length are right and the depth are right, and not save an old piece of junk that's,
Not going to be used anyway.
So,
so what am I saying?
they would have steps to be for access to the beach, and then from the beach, access the dock.
Well, I mean, no, I'm saying that you could angle a access walkway over, you know, if you want to keep the stairs there, okay.
just the way the dock is.
No, well, it would be, the dock would be straight, but you'd come over with a ramp bed and access the dock. So you can come down the stairs.
James,
Pardon me?
the dock next to it does exactly what you're
Exactly that, yeah. So, you know, there's like a little bit of, maybe not quite as gentle, you know, like more of a and then out. Like what we were looking at with Andrea Carter's property that used to be Bennett's.
Right. Okay, so from the owner's point of view, he'd like to connect from the stairs to the platform. That's what makes the most sense to him. But that's not what the code permits. I think we gotta go back to that. Right?
He can utilize, the point James is making is he can utilize those stairs. He doesn't have to move his stone stairs. He can build over to them, build a dock that connects to them on an angle or with a little jog in it.
But, you know, to make the dock fairly non-conforming, you know, just because there's an old structure in the water that probably will have to get replaced, seems.
Well, in my world, that thing's gonna disappear.
Well, it's gonna disappear, but the new thing will be as long as it is. So it'll be a fairly long. This will disappear, but it'll be new.
Why? It's past 4 feet, it's past.
No, I'm saying in their plan. In their plan, this old section will become new.
Yes.
Well, it says that it says we're gonna try to save it, but we know that an attempt at saving it is.
With the Valiant step.
Same situations we had over in your house.
Well, we don't have a contractor on site, on Zoom. An owner.
I don't see a lot of hardship in the hardship letter.
That was my other thing.
I said it was quite a letter.
It's a lot of words, yeah.
I don't, and we're going past, I mean, they want to go past 4 feet. They want to be too close to the property line.
130 feet.
It just doesn't, none of it makes sense at all.
And it appears to be based on a platform in the middle of the harbor.
Which, as we know, shouldn't be there.
All right, so I'm not on board with it. I think it should conform to the code.
I too, I'm in favor of moving it over so the setback is correct. Utilizing the old stairs if that's what their choice is. Not basing, you know, the rationale on the fact that this platform, the 20 by 6 foot platform is pre-existing. That shouldn't give them the ability to make the whole thing brand new and non-conforming.
Matt?
With the chair on this one.
Beg your pardon?
I'm with you on this one.
Oh, okay, go by the code. Mark?
I'll go along.
Yeah, no, this, I'm a no-go on this. And honestly, I think that platform should be removed, period, regardless of whether it's a dock application or not. That is just, it's out in the middle of the harbor, it's on public town bottomland. That thing shouldn't be there. And once again, anything that is built in its place should conform to current code.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I think requiring the removal of that is another
Prerequisite.
separate issue.
Yeah,
I mean, I think if he wanted to keep the thing the way it is, you know, it's been that way for a long, long time, I'd say, okay, you know, that's fine. But we can't build even another unattached dock.
But just to be clear, James, are you saying would repair be allowed?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So what?
Wouldn't you allow him to replace the boards that are missing and repair that thing if he's gonna keep it just the way it is? It's been that way forever?
Would you want him to remove it once it becomes dilapidated? I guess it's the alternative.
I mean, if it gets more than 50% dilapidated, then maybe.
Yes.
that would determine what condition it's actually
Well, Bo has.
versus, you know,
I'm not an inspector.
he's not an inspection person, so.
John said, take a look at it, I looked at it.
I thought you said it was less than 30%. You didn't- I can't.
Bill?
Yeah, no, I think, I don't have an opinion on whether it should stay there or not. I haven't taken a look at it. I think that's a different issue. But as far as building a new dock, I think it should conform to the code, and that platform should not be utilized.
Guess that's an 0 and 6. Against, or not approved, unapproved.
Yeah. What would be his next step, submitting an application?
plan.
On conforming dock?
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me,
And centered on the property?
I mean, this is prepared by something, revised by Costello Marine. I don't know what the date is. Costello Marine's involved in it to some extent. I would say, if the owner was asking me what he should do, like I said, he should go to the contractor and tell him that the town wants the thing to conform with the code. Not complicated. Setback, length, depth. Right?
Army Corps of Engineers and not DEC.
It's not, the DEC permit isn't here either.
I'm just wondering about that.
Part of the application that was submitted. Those were
Okay. But it wasn't the first iteration, maybe?
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Banana Creek. This is the fun stuff. Yeah, hold on, just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Just trying to create, give you a little, talk about a little bit about the background. Al, stop me or join in whenever you want. Maybe I should just yield that. The WMAC has inquired with the county regarding dredging to some extent, any extent, for quite a few years. And it's been on our recommended list. Every year, the county sends us a letter in April or so saying, we want to know which areas you think need dredging. And it's been on that list for probably the last 5 years.
At least six, at least
Six.
six, probably more.
Yeah, and
In the last four, it's been the top priority, or top or second.
so the last time, tell me if I'm wrong, the last time they went to go up to the boatyard, they were looking for the application was for 6 feet of depth, and they found that most of it was 6 feet, except for one little piece that was 5.5, and they got pretty upset because they had all their equipment set up just to dredge this much, right? And they bailed. So, is that, Mike telling that true? Al?
Yes, that's correct, John. That's correct. And even if you look at the current proposal that goes up from the marina to Tar Kettle, those existing depths right now are between 4.5 and 5.5 feet. And their application is for 6 feet. So they're really not, pulling a tremendous amount that, they're putting a lot of resources in for a very small return. Where they are coming in, and what we've argued about is that we wanted to get a deeper depth for the larger boats that Island Boatyard has been handling. So on that, they've relinquished, and they've asked for an 8-foot depth from the beginning of the channel all the way up to, the end of the marina, and then for 6 feet from there beyond. And that's going to require, I believe it was 25,000 cubic yards, if I'm not mistaken, of material that will then be put on Shell Beach or Wade's Beach.
So they've made a major commitment to a lot of material coming out of there.
And they're in a position now where, it had been 4 different agencies. Now there's 5 different agencies that are involved. And they even had to do core samples to decide the size of the particles and if they could actually be used as beach nourishment. I think they had some issues with that and they overcame them. My most recent communication with Suffolk County is that they're still waiting for DEC and WQC approval. And WQC, from what I understand, is the water quality criteria, which is part of the EPA, now the federal agency that's involved in the dredging, which hadn't been on most jobs before, but it's just getting tighter and tighter. I know that your group has come to question some of what was being done, and I know you're looking to go to see more getting done. But I would suggest that you see what happens with what they've proposed to do and what the application is put forth as it stands. Because if you were to ask for more right now, I would think you would jeopardize the project as it stands, because they could very easily, and most likely would, say, oh, you want to go deeper? Well, if you want us to do that, we'll investigate and start. And you might get 10, the next 10 years, nothing might happen. And it could still get turned, you know what I mean? And going any further could get turned down. My suggestion to you guys is to lay low, let them do what they are very close to having a permit to do. From what I understand, you're keeping an eye on the quality of the water. Am I mistaken in that? Or do I understand that right?
You say that again?
I understand that somebody in your group has, or your group has collectively been doing some testing of the water quality.
We have just started that as of Saturday, yes.
Okay. All right, well, maintaining that data, I think, would be fantastic. And if you don't see a major change after the proposed dredging happens, and that there's a problem with the water, then you have something to come back to them with.
Well, I think we know there's a problem.
Yes, on the podium, please. Say who you are, so it's okay.
Hello. Alice Dufresne. We've been talking to
town for a couple of years now about Monantic Creek and all the different boards, committees. And recently, a report came through that showed that 70 to 80% of the septic waste from the town center ends up in Monantic Creek. So, and we've been saying we have a problem here for a long time. And now we start to see like, well, maybe this is why we have a problem. So we met with the town board at the last work session, and we've asked that a focus group be created for water quality on Monantic Creek. We have a group we've created over the past 2 years called Monantic Creek Keepers. And after going to the water quality meeting, we, among ourselves, decided to fund one station so that we could get it in now. We'd like to put in 3, one at the head of the creek, one at the near the neck of the creek, and see what the difference is. We had differing information on what the dredging was going to entail. Some people said it was going to come to Tar Kettle. Some people said it was going to come to the curve in Midway Road. I looked online and I see it is not quite coming into the mouth of the creek. Like we need another 100, 150 feet to open up the narrows and get some tidal flow in there that we are not getting. And that's why we're here is, you know, how do we get that? They're going to be in there to do a major job, and it's such a little bit more.
Well, can I speak to just a couple of things? If the problem is sewage coming in, shouldn't it be addressed from that end? And
We need to address it.
necessarily from a dredging end and using it as a toilet bowl?
It's a multi-pronged solution.
I think it's a multi-pronged solution. That we need to deal with the septic, we all need to deal with our individual septics all around the creek, but we also need tidal flow to address it as sooner, because all of those things are going to take a long time. So I'm not, you know, I don't want to be, it's great that we're going to dredge. If we could just get it through that narrow point so that we'd get a little bit more water flowing in and out of the creek, it would be so wonderful.
I thought at the work session, what you were proposing was to do your testing over the course of this summer.
Yes.
And then if the dredging happens, as we hope it will, we know we're pretty sure some dredging is going to happen, right? Now, although you don't want to.
We're hopeful. There's no guarantee that a permit will come through.
Right. And then you were
There's
going
no guarantee that we'll get a permit for what's already been proposed.
Right.
So whatever dredging happens over the winter time, then you would take additional measurements, testing next summer and
Correct.
see if there was a difference. So that would then demonstrate that there's an environmental advantage to opening flow. And
Right.
do you have the criteria that the county uses for dredging?
I can look it up.
I have an extra copy if you want.
No, I did read it. It has to do with public access and commercial access and all of that. And I do feel like Monantic Creek has some very underutilized town landings because of the conditions in the creek.
It's a little bit scary because at one point, this is a 2-page thing. Basically what they're saying is they don't want to hear about a homeowners association. Right? Did you read that part?
Yeah, but I'm talking about water quality.
Yeah.
Well, the water quality is part of the document that John's talking about. If the Suffolk County, I believe it's Suffolk County Department of Health, if you look at the last criteria, John, if you have it in front of you.
Yeah.
Maybe just read that. It might help to explain what. And I will mention that the county has never dredged anything based on this. But please, if you would, just read that.
Yeah, so the heading for this is a dredging project shall be deemed to be in the public interest if it supports, advances, or enhances the following types of uses, activities, and/or facilities. And there's a whole bunch of lists. The last one is that would apply to what I think you're trying to do. If it improves the environmental / ecological health and/or marine productivity based upon a certification from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, Office of Ecology, or the Suffolk County Department of Environment and Energy. Never heard of that. Such determination shall consider factors including but not limited to flow rates, contamination levels, nitrogen levels, phosphorus levels, coliform levels, algae growth rates, salinity, pH, dissolved oxygen, water temperature, oxygen levels, and other considerations that may jeopardize the health of the marine ecology or productivity. So they would consider, if you believe this document, they would consider dredging based on an appraisal by the Suffolk County Department of Health with regard to these factors. But I think I'm telling you stuff you already know.
Yeah. So,
Also, I'm thinking of the Conic Estuary. They are about to do or I think this summer, starting a pretty widespread testing program.
they are, I went to their meeting, and they're gonna have grants coming up also for water quality in the fall,
Right.
which is part of why we're trying to get organized around all of that.
You're testing, but then getting them involved.
Yes,
To be able to maybe
yes.
get some of the data to fulfill those criteria.
Right.
No, I applaud, I applaud what you're doing because whatever you're doing now will apply to other creeks. Probably not in my lifetime.
I'm hoping it's better for my kid.
Yeah.
It's whatever, yeah.
It seems to me too that there's always this gap that people forget, right? This is what we're trying to get the county to do. There's always an option, maybe not so much in a public waterway, there's caveats, for private contracting, right? And this is a much larger scale, but if you view, I think Mabel Clark Creek, right? That's a homeowners association that obtained a permit to dredge that area. It's the town's bottom, so the town is responsible for the spoils coming from that. They gotta get it out of there. The homeowners association secure the permit, they provide the funding for it, and then the town has to handle all the spoils. So there might be some model that exists where a civic organization or group or PUP maybe could pick up where the county stops. Like if it's deemed by whoever that there needs to be another 150 feet for reason X, Y, and Z, thank you for getting where you got, Suffolk County. We are now going to pursue going from that point to this point by our own means. We already know that we have good safe spots to deposit, because you guys deposited there, so you can't deny us for that, right? And kind of build on that. It works on a smaller scale. It may just be a much larger project that the pattern could work for.
But Al, you haven't, I think you told me that that's really hard to get the approvals for a private dredge, no?
Not necessarily, Vijay. I mean, there are, we have several examples on the island where it's been done. You have.
They had it in Cockles Harbor in the lagoon by Little Ram,
Yeah, just last
in
year.
addition to Mabel's Creek.
And Mabel's.
South Ferry Hills Basin, the Mabel Clark Creek, I mean, this exists in the town historically. Those are much smaller areas, but the town has been willing to work with these civic organizations.
Okay,
It's kind of coming at it from a different tack, like
right.
the Public Works, Suffolk County Public Works, or whoever the parent agency, they're only gonna do what they can do and are willing to do. Obviously, that hasn't been enough for South Ferry Hills, all these other organizations, so maybe
Right, okay.
reach out to them as well.
So who am I reaching out to?
I would start with like the South Ferry Hills Association, and is there an Shorewood? I don't know if they have their own.
There is some sort of an association.
Right, for Mabel Clark.
So do
right.
they come to you when they do that?
Yeah.
Mabel
Yes,
Creek.
they'll come to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mabel did.
Ultimately,
you just
they'll come
recently
to us
approved.
after it.
Okay.
We're happy, and the same, the guys.
Scudder Cottage project,
I can check that information.
and the Royer project just.
We'll go there.
Project.
Time out.
I see
Al's got
come
something.
at this from all different directions.
Yeah.
And so I figured we'd come here and we ask,
Yeah.
how do we, how,
Mr. Ms. Dupree, if you
Yes.
wanted to go that approach, you would typically start out with a contractor. And, you know, ask a contractor if it's feasible for them to do, and what you're suggesting, you know, I mean, to go another 100 feet or so is probably not a big deal for a private contractor. But you would come, typically the process would be the private contractor like end consultants or one of them would put together the application. And once approvals come through from the DEC, then you would come to the town with that application and I'm sure that our committee would move it forward to the town council.
So
So
Alice,
that's certainly an option.
should I brief Jim Colligan and ask him to get in touch with PEP?
Yeah.
Because he's our liaison.
Yes, yeah.
Quite involved.
Yeah, I heard his
Did you,
report,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And then we went to the meeting after that and
Yeah.
talked to them a bit too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, that would be good. I mean, anyone you can suggest we should talk to, I would love to know.
Did you speak with any of the entities that you quoted in that last section? The Suffolk County was Department of Health, but there was another, if they have to come and
Ecological.
and do some testing, or if they have to verify testing, what was the language in the? It sounds like you want to be in touch with them regarding.
It's based on certification for the environment, improving the environmental conditions, certification.
So you should have them come and do it now, establish what you have now.
Or establish, or see what they need to know, I guess.
Yeah.
That's, that's an old, that's from 2006. So just like,
It might be, some other entity that's under a different name, but it,
just like our charge that, it says that we're supposed to be concerned with water quality, and that's not what we're doing. I'm not saying, we're typically not.
Well, we've talked about, the mooring thing, the conservation mooring.
pump out boat, that's been a water quality issue forever, no one wants to hear it.
And the testing is probably the same people that do the beach and the marine testing for Suffolk County. It's probably, they're going to be the same group that would end up doing that testing. So
Is that what you were talking about, that testing? Or,
that's actually separate. This is county testing.
okay,
Sort of, this is what I reported on a couple of weeks ago. So it's probably that same group that would end up doing that. So, I could certainly,
reach out and see what we find.
yeah,
Okay, well, if
find
anyone
a
has
contact
any
for that.
contacts, please let me know.
Nancy Pearson, right?
Nancy Pearson would be the one. That's like, that's you.
If you want to pursue it on your own, if you just Google Nancy Pearson, Suffolk County Department of Health, she's in charge of water quality testing,
Okay,
and has been for quite a while. She's,
so saltwater testing?
yes,
Okay,
primarily they're doing the beaches now.
right.
She does it herself.
Yeah, she does it herself.
She likes children.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
Yeah, and then there's a route of leaving the county out of it. It's a huge commitment. But you guys seem committed.
Well, we live there. We live there, it's bad.
Gotta start somewhere.
It's bad. Yeah, come visit. I mean, I've seen like 4 or 5 dead blue claw crabs in the past few days.
Lying on the beach.
Just lying on the beach. I mean, it's just nothing.
Right. Right.
And when I was a kid, it was teeming. Clams,
Yeah.
crabs, everything. It's just dead.
And it's been that way for quite some
It
time.
has been. I've been watching it, and talking to people and saying, what can I do here? What's going on?
The only clams you can find up in there are up by the mouth and around the marina
Right.
that way.
Yeah, a few places where things got stirred up.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just nothing. I mean, it's.
On that note, there's one area that's a sanctuary up there where they put in, 20 or 25,000 clams
They're not there anymore.
That sanctuary drifted away years ago. That sanctuary with all its markers drifted away years ago.
The markers drifted away, but, you know, to date, we haven't heard of anybody that's, you know, put a clam rake in there to see if there's anything surviving in there. I'd be really curious to know. Those 4 or 5 sanctuaries are all marked, and their areas are laid out on in our town code as places that you're not allowed to clam.
That's why we
Put a
put
mooring, for that matter. So, I mean, just testing, I mean, that would be a very simple thing or area to test. If we could authorize, you know, maybe a Bayman to go in and put a rake in there.
Somebody, a payment.
Any volunteers?
If they were remarked, I'd be more than happy to sink a bull rake into them, but
They haven't been marked.
I don't think that it's gonna be very promising. I know that there's one of these sanctuaries right next to my mooring in West Neck.
Correct.
And years ago, before that one disappeared and floated away, I put a rake in that and there was nothing but old dead shells. But then again, that could have been from old age. When you drop a clam that big in, how much longer does it have to live? And you've dumped X amount in one location like that.
I mean, what little we found.
I participated in that dump, and it
Big
was
old
a
one.
tremendous amount.
It was, correct? Yeah.
We've continued to, you know, I've been doing the seeding for the past 3 or 4 years. And so we're continuing to seed in some areas, both within the sanctuary areas and other areas as well. I can get that information for all you guys, because really it's kind of a gray area, like nobody really seems to know, but we keep track of all of it, so. But I can tell you, we haven't done anything in that defined area inside Manana Creek. We've tried up at the, sort of like at the mouth there where it opens up by Cronin's old house and along the shorelines there, to no real avail. But there has still been some effort along that one.
Well, before you guys seed an area, do you test, I mean, you must test the area to see if it's a good, healthy area to seed, right?
You would
It's
think,
based on local knowledge.
Really?
you know, there's kind of a couple of loose criteria that Cornell uses. So we try to guide them into those areas based on that. Chief among them is usually public access, right? They want the product to be able to grow and be utilized. Also, being stirred up helps, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
helps all of that. So we try to focus on those areas. But that's a conversation for another day, but
Right.
nonetheless,
Yeah.
those areas are still
Yeah, they're listed in the code. I've seen them before. I think I brought them to somebody's attention a while ago.
So,
The fact that they're not marked anymore.
just if I could just bring this around, the WMAC has made recommendations that's been signed off on by the supervisor that went to the county for dredging priorities, and Manana Creek's been part of that letter for 5 or 6 years without any positive results. I think that the approach that you're taking has a lot of merit to it, and I applaud you guys for that. And it's a year-long thing now, right? Pretty much.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
and I just hope you can keep the momentum going.
Got to. Can't let it keep getting worse.
I mean, the model works, you know, so
Yeah. No, I know.
if you get people putting their money where their mouth is.
Yes. So, anyway, we should start to see some results from the test. And we'll keep people informed. We're gonna be working with Joe here and try to get that information out to everyone. And, you know, we're just hoping that the dredging does help.
How many people came to your,
24.
pretty good.
Okay.
They spent money.
And they keep sending me money for this. And I keep hearing from other people who want to get involved, so.
And, I mean, I would have been there except for my grandkids and stuff.
Yeah, well, some of the people said stuff like that too.
I seem to be the only one who recalls this, so maybe I'm imagining this, but there were similar concerns about Crab Creek. And so the initial testing that was done there was to compare the rise and fall of the tide in Peconic Bay versus the rise and fall of the tide in Peconic, in the Crab Creek. And my recollection is that there wasn't much difference, so that approach didn't carry much weight, unfortunately. But if that works in with your testing equipment, I would think that would be valuable as well. If Banana Creek is only going up and down 2 feet, but West Neck Harbor is 2.5 feet, that kind of proves it. The water isn't moving.
Tides vary dramatically.
Yes.
Depending on the wind and the moon and the weather. What we're testing for is dissolved oxygen content, temperature, and salinity. So that we can really, as an indicator.
Those are the only three things.
As an indicator, because we can do sample testing, which we haven't started doing anything like that, for the nitrates and all, but that's going to vary dramatically depending on when we take the samples, what the weather's been. I mean, just like you were talking. So this is something it's monitoring every 15 minutes. And we can download the information, and we're going to download the first batch of information on Saturday and see what kind of values we're getting and if we need to recalibrate things a little bit and fine tune. But that is, we got advice from the USGS, who are running the South Ferry site, that these were the things would be indicators as to what's happening in the creek and why, the life changes.
Dissolved oxygen is a major tell.
Right.
For everything else as well. So
that's our major thrust at this point. And that's why we also thought having the 3 stations, at the head of the creek, where evidently this is where we're getting the septic flow. And we also get a lot of fresh water in there. We get evidently 70% of the water from Fresh Pond ends up in Menantic Creek too, is what I've been told. So it's all coming into Menantic Creek. But nothing's going out. So
That's not a good situation if your toilet works like that.
it's not a good situation. And that's what we need. We need the water. So that's what we know we need to do a lot of other things, and a lot of our neighbors are putting in the IA systems and we're trying to get that stuff going, but,
I think what your approach is brilliant. We've made considerable efforts and come up against a brick wall every time.
Okay.
So I hope this.
Okay, well, if any of you have any recommendations, you have my email.
Yep.
Please send me people I should talk to, reach out to, anything you think of. I'd really appreciate it.
It sounds like the USGS have been very helpful to you.
They've been very helpful. Yes.
you've spoken to Cornell, I assume?
Yeah. I have my shirt on. We were helping with their oysters over at Dickerson Creek this afternoon, so, yeah. So I'm trying to get everybody I can involved in this.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so.
It'll come down to whether or not it's a county project or a private project. In the long haul, that's going to be one of the conversations.
Does the county itself, do their employees do the dredging, or do they subcontract to a private?
Both, or either, right? Yeah.
Right.
They have their.
Depending on the type of dredging and where the spoils are going.
So do you have any idea who would do this?
Employees,
Job?
dredge has been in.
Dredging, Latham does that sometimes.
Chesterfield, Latham.
Latham in Orient.
It depends on the scale.
Does he dredge?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be decided who's doing it until they have the permit, and then it would be bid? Is that the way it works?
Sorry, say again.
So has a contractor, is there a contractor already engaged for Menantic as far as the application process? Or they would then bid on it?
The county.
The county right now is involved in.
Got it.
It's just a footfall.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Is there any chance that the town could do it themselves?
start on that, you know, start taking control of their own waterways rather than relying on Suffolk County?
You know,
Just a question.
no, that's been brought up multiple times over the decades.
Yeah.
You know, should we, even in conjunction with other towns, you know, should the East End towns get their own dredge? You had a frustration,
Yeah.
you know, should we get our own dredge? And that's probably the easier part of the whole equation. You know, it's more getting these permits from now 6 agencies, Al, you're talking about?
Right.
Getting permits and then.
Permitting is the most, is the most onerous part. And then beyond that, to own your own dredge, I mean, these things, first of all, the window is very short. It's from, I think, sometime in October to January.
Right.
So if you're gonna share a dredge, how many different people are gonna be able to utilize?
Yeah.
And what's gonna happen when it breaks down, which they do pretty regularly. You know, you suck up a big rock and all of a sudden the machine's down for a while. It's just, it's the you know, and for a number of times that you have to go into a particular area privately, as far as the town's concerned, it would be, it's much cheaper to contract it out. It really is. Just
The town uses their excavator to do parts of the Merkel Basin that they can reach.
Oh, okay. Well, so,
Again, the model exists.
Yeah.
It's not,
okay.
right, so
Okay.
some combination of public and private partnership ultimately gets those other areas to where they need to be. Much smaller projects, like, it's not the same scale at all,
Right,
but
right.
much smaller projects. It exists.
But even the extent we're talking about may not be that big,
Right.
beyond what
Right.
is already being asked for.
Getting the equipment there and doing.
Right,
the
well, that's why it
stuff.
seemed like adding it to that project made the most sense.
Right, but Alice.
Yeah, Alan.
Oh, I understand, I completely understand that. I completely understand.
They gotta figure this
that.
out.
But, so then we need to come at it in a different way.
Thank you for what you've done, we'll take it from here. Like that, you know.
I don't know, I hope we've helped you.
Well, I don't know whether you have yet. But I thank you for listening to
We've
us.
discussed what some of the options are for you, and we've discussed what roadblocks we've come up against. You're not beating your head against the wall.
Right, right.
We have been. And I like your approach.
We see 25,000 yards of material go away in the, you know, in the upcoming season, see what that does, and then go from there. And in the meantime, I think doing the testing, as much testing as you can, get a base of what's going on is a wonderful idea. I couldn't applaud you more for doing that.
Without data, they can't make decisions.
Right, no. I think we have to like prove what we've got and and what's changing about it or whatever, yes.
You're doing the right thing, I think.
Thank you. I just want things to get better.
Right. I don't think you're wasting your time. You're coming at it from a good angle.
Well, thank you very much for your time
Okay.
and your support.
We've been trying, I guess.
Right, but please do send me, if any of you think of anything or anyone else I should be talking to. I would really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds like.
Shell Beach too, gets more flow.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Last thing I threw on the agenda.
Yeah, let that open up, right? That's,
Well, yeah, it was, but
With an island.
The last item,
Is Shell Beach had a break in it. And it was only maybe, it was a third less long than it is now. And high tide, you couldn't walk. Low tide, you couldn't walk the water.
last item I threw on the agenda because there's been some confusion about what the permit, what the renewal fees are for stake mooring and pulleys in general and stake mooring and pulleys at Silver Beach Lagoon. And I'm gonna need your help with this, DJ. The resolution for the rate increases that was done for the moorings is pretty brief. And be resolved that the following mooring renewal fees are hereby established. Residential renewal, 150 a year, commercial renewal, 250 a year. There's no mention of the other type of mooring situations. So,
So in the absence of change, I think it stays the same.
No,
You wanna recommend that we change
It
it?
does not. I clarified this with Stephen when I updated everything with online moorings at the end of December.
Yeah.
And actually, Billy, you were the one who inadvertently triggered a review of that to see if it's actually working, and it was not working for Silver Beach specifically. According to the town attorney, based on the language of the resolution, there are the two fees, right? So commercial and holding were the same thing to begin with, right? They're the same fees. So they went to, if I have the numbers wrong, but 250 per year, right?
correct.
Right.
And private moorings went to 150 a year. Silver Beach Lagoon are private moorings. Now, they previously had a separate fee associated with them. I brought this up during the conversations, as a matter of fact. The town attorney clarified, it is 150 per year for all private moorings now as a result of that resolution. So your mooring at the Silver Beach Lagoon bulkhead there, which previously was, I think, $375 for 3 years, the renewal, that's gone. That went out the window with that resolution, and it converted to, as a private mooring, it's 150 per year moving forward.
I thought the whole rationale for raising the fee was that it hadn't been raised in 20 years. And the Silver Beach Lagoon was raised in 2017 from 125 to 375.
I'm not saying
It
why.
was not specifically addressed in the resolution.
That whole 20-year thing is not true.
Yeah, I know the whole 20, yeah, I know. But the resolution identifies moorings that are covered under sections 90-5 and 90-6. The lagoon is a separate section -91. So I don't see where Stephen comes up with this.
I don't have an answer for the why. All I know is I asked because I needed to get online moorings to levy the correct fees. And I was instructed to tell them that private moorings are private moorings are private moorings.
Yeah, but it says residential moorings. It doesn't even use the proper language.
I agree that
It doesn't, we don't have a definition for.
I agree that the language used in the resolution is not ideal. It's not the language that I suggested be used, but it was the language that was used nonetheless. So if that needs to be changed or adjusted or go create a special fee for Silver Beach or some other category, then that needs to be adopted by resolution, and then we're happy to levy those fees. I just need to tell them what to charge.
Yeah, I think
Come up with a recommendation for the town board, that would be great.
since
I mean, like a little writing.
Since in chapter 90, there's separate definitions for the different types of moorings, being more, anchoring type moorings, stake mooring and pulley types. There's another definition for holding moorings, a definition for commercial mooring. If I was part of this, I would have listed those. So there wasn't any question that it was inclusive.
In the past, stake mooring pulleys were the same price as a mooring.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, even on
The only difference was that Lagoon was different.
Yeah.
And Daniel Lord was not. I think.
No, the lagoon was the only one that was different.
Yeah, Lagoon and Dickerson
And it was-
are the only ones that are carved out and treated separately.
Even on the application, there's a
Down there, it has its
differentiation.
own.
Condon. Yes, yeah,
Even on the applications, the differentiation between private, riparian, stake mooring, pulling, commercial mooring, holding mooring, so.
Well, differentiation in what sense are you referring?
You have to check off what type of tackle you're.
That would make
Because we have to know what it
sense. We have
is.
to know what it is.
But the fees levied, there were two categories of fees for applications, right? Let's stick with applications just for 1 second. So there's only two types of fees for applications. Commercial or holding, which was fee X
Right.
for application, and then all others. I don't care what you want to call them, but we should clarify, but everything else, same fee, right? Then upon renewal, there is a separate fee for commercial and holding, all others, and Silver Beach. But so you really were dealing with two categories of fees on one section, and then three categories of fees on a separate section, renewals.
What about if there are some, tell me if I'm wrong. Stake mooring pulleys, they're also called commercial.
So
Status is commercial.
There are, although in the code, that's prohibited. And there are a few that somehow, over the years, have been
Appeared.
granted, much like there are holding and commercial moorings that have been issued to entities that would otherwise be prohibited from receiving them in the code. But they have them nonetheless.
Who is renting out a stake mooring? Who? Where is that happening?
I don't know that it's happening,
Okay.
just know that they exist. There was at least one
That's being
that is
rented out.
is permitted as a commercial
I got you.
stake, pulley, and mooring.
Okay, and not a holding, not in the sense that.
I believe there's also one that's a holding.
There is a holding, I think that's,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just reading the definition, but, you know, just renting,
Right, yeah, I know. I don't know that it's ever actually been rented, but the
Yeah, yeah.
potential exists.
yeah.
Theoretically.
So what fee are they, what fee are they getting
The
charged?
same fee, there is no separate, there's only, and now there's only two fees. There previously was 3 fees for renewal, 2 fees for application. But now there's only 2 fees for everything. You have the application fee for X and Y, and the renewal fee for X and Y. That's it.
Well, isn't X, if I understood you, X and Y is private or commercial?
Correct.
So that's what I'm asking, these commercial stake mooring and pulleys, what fee do they get charged?
That would be charged as it'd be charged as commercial mooring. When they go to renew it, they would be renewed as commercial mooring.
Since it's prohibited, we should really look into it.
Wait, it's not supposed.
Next step.
And now since they're residential, you can live there.
You could be a resident.
I love it.
Yeah, there's endless gaps in all this stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
Just, and just on the, you mentioned that the lagoon, and there was the reason that the lagoon was slated at a higher rate was because it requires maintenance. It requires maintenance dredging from time to time, and it requires, the replacement of the bulkhead from time to time. So that was the rationale.
Well, it was the installation of the bulkhead and the new arrangement down there that we basically paid for.
Yeah, all the lines and everything wouldn't that put in?
It was all private. It was all out
That
of
was
individuals' pockets.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
It was just spec'd at what they had to put
Right,
in.
that was not
Oh,
done by the
okay.
town. The town did the dredging and the town did the
Okay,
bulkhead.
right.
County did the dredging.
And the seeding and the maintenance of the bamboo and whatnot.
Right.
County-
So
the county didn't
long story
dredge
short
the
is
area.
all this came up, like this was discussed, like it was put forth as a consideration during the mooring fee conversation. And it was lumped together in the product that we have now.
Got it.
So if that needs to be revisited as a result of this conversation or other questions,
It should be cleaned up,
then it would be super helpful to have some recommendation to do that, right?
Well, I'm glad we got Bo Payne, because it's clear in your mind, thank God.
Yeah, well, I just have to translate this to online mooring so that way they can actually charge the right things, right? Because even if you pay your bill in town clerk's office, it's based on what online moorings is charging. And thank you for.
Well, it's the reason why I came in so early instead of waiting till August, because I wanted to see before.
Yeah, well,
Happened.
she sent it to me and I said, oh, no, that's just a problem with the notice, because we had template issues with the notices, they weren't up to date. And then I looked at it, I'm like, no, wait a minute, and then I checked in with them, I had emailed them about it, just if you'd like to know, on December 28th, to confirm that it was supposed to be fixed, and it was not, so it is now.
So what's the fee at the Silver Beach Lagoon?
It's about $1,000.
It's the same as everywhere else. It's $150 per year. It's exactly the same as if you have a stake and pulley at Daniel Lord.
So that goes against the
Private mooring out
rationale.
in.
So there's
Yeah, I know.
no surcharge because of the maintenance required of a bulkhead for those.
That went away when this got adopted.
So I went from 125 for 3 years to 375 for 3 years to 450 for 3 years.
Which everybody pays.
Yeah.
But the
there's no
people at the
premium
lagoon get more service.
Yeah, and you're not walking on, in the mud to get to your boat. You got a bulkhead, you have, you got.
Parking, yeah,
Facility.
so,
Concierge, it's a concierge situation.
Yeah, that's it.
It's Jeeves, anyway.
Maybe a proposal is whatever percentage the other ones went up, that should go up the same percentage. I don't know if that's.
Then it wouldn't go
you're out of
up.
the country now, so it's probably the matter. You're suggesting.
Well, thanks for providing a lack of clarification.
As much as I got. I mean,
What I got out of this,
I can forward you the emails if you want. It's all there.
what I got out of
Save
this,
everything.
there is no premium charge now for Silver Beach Lagoon. It's the same as any
It's
other.
the same as theirs.
Right.
Yeah.
So that it sort of,
Oh, they paid a premium for 7 years.
Yeah.
Which was the whole idea, was was basically supposed to be paying for the work that was done.
Exactly.
so I think it possibly there should be some consideration of making distinctions between, regular stake mooring and pulleys and the ones that are at the lagoon and perhaps the ones at Daniel Lord where they put stakes in, and organized it and, maybe there's a little more maintenance there going on.
Right, the town's doing the stakes down there, right? And also, I think the town, even put in the 4x4.
And there's a better parking situation there for the moment.
You have to buy the land back from
Right.
those who will not be named.
But I'm just saying that perhaps there's a distinction that should be placed in the, for future, maybe not right this second.
There's a conversation that has been put forth. I know Peter, I personally am not a supporter of that as an individual. But I know Peter has discussed that many times, several times with this group over the years of implementing a separate fee structure specifically for Daniel Lord Road, akin to what was implemented at Silver Beach, right, at the lagoon there. So it's been.
I think,
Never really gained any.
I think in hashing all this out and getting it more, so that people can understand it, that should be part of it.
Lots to drill down on.
I mean, premium for.
Well, I mean, talking about the different categories, you might say, okay, don't just say it's all lumped together, just call out the different categories. Maybe they're the same price, maybe they're not, I don't know. But at least you then set a structure up to make them different prices if you ever want them.
All right, so the world isn't coming to an end, I guess, so. Any other discussion tonight?
I would like to add, is there some way to inspect docks that are been in existence that are already in existence? My point is that, there's quite a few docks that are getting dilapidated, wires hanging, water lines hanging. I tripped over an electric line 2 weeks ago going underneath the dock. And, is there some method to, I don't know what the answer is. I'm just trying to figure something, putting it on the table that there is a problem with maintenance of docks.
Been a marked increase in the number of floating docks breaking loose as well.
Yeah.
I'm retrieving them and putting them back where they go. And I actually had this thought just the other day. Does anybody ever look at this stuff after?
After it's, CO
Could
is.
there be a mechanism where the Bay Constable is gonna be the eyes, and maybe make a report to the
harbor man.
building department?
No, I mean, we just, when the dock is floating away, or Tom calls and says, hey, so-and-so's float is down around the corner.
I know there's a property that we're gonna start doing some work on, it's changed hands, and maybe that's the stuff you tripped over.
They could be. I mean, there's quite a
Simpson
few
Road.
properties like that.
It may just be something that maybe gets looked at as part of C of O renewal, like part of that process if they're transferring.
Or something.
To clean up, either cut off those old water lines and electric lines or whatever.
It's not causing a problem.
Well, I mean, by code, you're supposed to maintain what you've built. I believe that's when you apply for the dock permit. So there should be some mechanism to check to ensure whether it's being done or not. I know that there's another floating dock that is the judge's house, the previous judge.
Yeah, in West.
I know that that's been, whatever, this
We have a phone.
litigation, whatever going on there.
Yeah, we have a phone call into them because
That's, that's been like that for well over.
and now it's worse.
Now it's real bad. And there's other instances where, just recently, there's a dock, the mouth of Mananic, and I noticed a handrail went up on it. I don't know whether that is something that requires a permit or anything like that, but that's another thing that maybe an inspector will look for is things that aren't in the original plan that have been added. Kayak racks come to mind, handrails, stairs, but the main concern is the maintenance aspect. Because there are, like I said, there's a few docks that, somebody should really get back under there and put that stuff back on the dock. Because it's now.
Or get rid of it.
Or get rid of it, yeah. I don't know.
For the harbor master.
Right, so right now, it's a self-correcting problem when it gets to the point of hazard to navigation, right? Like when it's causing a hazard to navigation or causing, environmental debris, right? That's when we currently step in.
Right.
Or if there's some sort of, okay, it's floating around, hey, now it's going to cause a problem, obviously, we're gonna be proactive about that. But we're wholly reliant on it falling apart, becoming readily apparent that something needs to happen.
So there was a situation like that. What do you call that Spanish house they tore down by the Pridwin?
Right.
Herman's Castle.
There was a dock associated with that, which was obviously falling apart. And the town requested of the owner to fix it, and he refused. And then eventually he needed a permit for something, and the town board said, if you want to talk about a permit for whatever, first you got to take care of that dock.
Okay.
And it got that's how that was resolved in that particular situation.
Yeah, but that's a little reactionary. You want to kind of get ahead of the
You want to
problem.
try and get ahead of the
I'm
problem.
just telling you what,
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying, there should be a mechanism.
I'm not recommending it.
There's a lot we need to do with docks. I think when we're considering docks, we should break it down into zones and have different criteria for different zones around the island, because the code doesn't adequately address all the environmental situations we have at different points around the island. It's like, this size doesn't fit all. And so that and maintenance are just a couple of things that we should consider.
No, you're right. Rhode Island has different classifications for different areas, different.
And we should, it's a diverse shoreline, so the same dock doesn't work in different places.
Exactly. Well, the protocol should be that you guys let the building department know when there's something that's falling down, like a derelict something or other. Unless it's actually floating out in the harbor, that's sort of a marine hazard to navigation.
Yeah.
The other thing, it's attached to somebody's property and it's a hazard.
Could I ask a quick question? Could I get 15 seconds on what's happening with Real Point?
Jim's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bang. Oh, that's
One
good.
more sentence, nothing yet. I
Okay.
mean, no, he's following up with the new,
Yeah.
I'll ask him. Thank you.
We've been getting some correspondence from the Army Corps of Engineers. And at the moment, it seems like.
Can you start
Oh,
again?
yeah. We've been corresponding with the Army Corps of Engineers, and it looks like at the moment they are not going to pick it up, but they've asked for some information with respect to some environmental things. And so that's, I think, in Joe Fenora's hands. I think he's the one who's been responding to their request for information. So we just got something this morning, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Joe about it before he left.
If I could help with any information, anything like that, please let me know.
Yeah, it's taken a turn in a direction that I'm not happy with. I thought it was further along in the process and we were just waiting for funding, but that appears not to be the case.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Good.
Motion to adjourn, somebody?
So moved. Second.
Second?
I was gonna say, I'm not gonna second anyway. Good night, guys.